Welcome to the WisMissus podcast, reading, writing, and roaming around Wisconsin, the Midwest, and beyond. I'm Valerie Biel here with T.K. Sheffield.
Hello, everyone. I'm T.K. Sheffield. I write stories for readers who want to laugh and escape, funny, cozy mysteries that are The Devil Wears Prada meets a Wisconsin supper club.
I love that. That's the best little line. It's so good. It's so good. And everyone goes, oh, I get that. I understand that. So,
I hope so.
but we like to start with the reading, writing, and roaming part. What have you been reading lately?
I'm so blessed to have wonderful options to read, and I have some beta books that I am reading that are, in my computer as PDFs, but a couple of special ones. At Valerie, Your Wonderful Books to Beer, I picked up Will the Real Carolyn Keene Please Stand Up by Christine Kalani. I'm reading that one into that. And then a dear, wonderful writer, Tammy Borden. I saw her at the Lakefly Literary Festival, Lakefly Writers Conference, I should say, in Oshkosh, and she is I shouldn't say she gifted me this one of her books, A Perennial Life, and I am reading it, and it's just lovely and inspirational. And I also have something for the summer, which is called The Snowbirds by Christina Clancy. How about you?
I wish I had something to hold up, and I should have been more prepared to hold up the cover of Tracy Phillips's Forewarned. And that's probably one of the ones you might have
That
in
is
your
one of the ones,
computer to read.
yes.
So it's an advanced reader copy because the book is not slated to come out until August. But I had read an earlier version of this, and then I just recently reread it. It is so good, and it's exactly my kind of book because it's got this little paranormal thread that runs through
Yep.
it,
Yep.
and it is set in the summer of 1976, and all the feels came back, all the nostalgia, and just what that was like. Now, I grew up with older siblings, so I was like 10 years old, right? Or actually, no, I was only 8 in 76. All of like the music references. And so Tracy is a musician. And so she has a playlist that goes with this book, which I'm always just like love because I like to do those too. But it's YA, and it's YA with a little paranormal, bent to it, but definitely suspense, thriller. I really enjoyed it. Have you read it yet?
No, I've just
Okay.
started it, and I have it, and there's so many. That's what I mean. So blessed to read so many wonderful authors in different genres that are fun to read. And to me, the more you read, the better writer you become.
Oh, for
Right?
sure.
It's like exercise for your brain. You
Mhm.
learn punctuation passively, you learn punctuation, you learn vocabulary, you learn structure, you learn pacing just by reading other authors. And it's just exciting to me to do it. And, I mean, I started out as a reader before a writer. So, hey,
Right. Yeah, me too, for sure. And with Will the Real Carolyn Keene Stand Up brings me back to my Nancy Drew days. So
yes,
I have a shelf in my office, and I should at some point probably like pivot so that I actually have books behind me because I have a really nice bookshelf in front of me, which is kind of silly, right? Instead of what's behind me. But all those Nancy Drews. So Carolyn Keene, if we remember, was the pseudonym or the pen name for the people who wrote the Nancy Drew books, and it wasn't the
yes.
same person the entire time. Guess I kind of had forgotten that. Like, you just think she's a real like person. But the Hardy Boys, what were the other ones? There was a whole process for those series that
Well,
did,
and you fell in love with the series. They were basically adventure stories, right?
yeah. Yeah.
And as a young reader, now we had 3 channels on TV. So you dove into books to find your adventure. And it was a different time, different place, different opportunities for storytelling. And I read the Black Stallion mysteries over and over again. Those were they were horse stories, but also adventures. And
Yes.
I read them all and read them again. And, it's just thrilling. I hear people who say, oh, I wish I could go back. And I get it because that's where your adventure was. So much of it was on the page and then in your mind.
Yes. Did you read Trixie Belden?
Yes.
I have all the Trixie Beldens, but what's funny is I have the earlier versions of Trixie Beldens in the hardcover that were my sister's books.
Wow.
And then they kept going. And, back in the day when my mom would get her hair done on Saturdays in the summer, then I was allowed to go to the Five and Dime next door. I sound like I'm a lot older than I am when I say these things.
Did you take the
I,
stagecoach into town?
I did not. I no,
Popcorn?
we rode the horse. Just kidding. No, the buckboard, the buckboard. Yeah, no, the Model T. Anyway, you know, and hand crank that puppy going. So, but I remember getting one. I was allowed to buy the next Trixie Belden. I have like a shelf full of those. They live next to Nancy Drew and Little House on the Prairie, you
You
know, and
do need to flip your camera so we
I
can see
should.
your book
Oh,
wealth.
I was fascinated though with Christine's book because I did not really understand the business sense behind the development of these series. Um, and so I know you're not all the way through it, but
Yeah.
it was a very well researched book, and I enjoyed that thoroughly. We had that actually as one of the books that we read for Books and Beer and had her in for the book discussion for.
Yeah, she's fabulous. And regarding today's topic, she is someone, if you're doing publishing, Christine is a wonderful editor. She's got a publishing business. She can assist you in many ways, shapes, and forms.
Yes. So she's someone I refer people to a lot, particularly when they're getting to the point of book formatting. We're done with reading. Roaming? Where have you been roaming?
Roaming, I was at Lake Fly. Oh, if you are a new writer and you want a smaller conference and you don't feel, you feel a little intimidated, go to Oshkosh Marriott Hotels. Beautiful, brand new, renovated. The staff is fabulous. And then where they have the event right across the street, at the little convention center, it's beautiful, lovely convention center right on the water. And they do a fabulous job. This is their vendors and authors, so they have a beautiful book fair for everybody. And then they've got this wonderful booklet talking about the event. Fun
Nice.
people,
It looked like
fabulous.
a good time. I was sad I couldn't be there this year,
Yeah,
but
highly
um,
recommend if you want to go. It's affordable. Do it. How about you?
have I been roaming anywhere? No, no,
You've
I
been
haven't.
working, you've been writing.
I've been working so hard, so I'll just move right into writing. So I have this book that I promised to Irish Fest. Irish Fest is August 14th through the 17th this year. Woo. And I will be there with this book. However, the book just hit draft stage. I just finished it 2 weeks ago. And so I let it marinate for 1 week. I just wanted to set it aside and then come back with fresh eyes. So I've been reading through and editing. So it's not quite ready for beta readers yet, but it will be soon. Because I wrote really fast. I'm a little nervous about did I do okay, right? I mean, like I feel more confident than ever about my ability to like have a good plot structure or whatever, but I don't usually write this fast. I usually give a little bit more thought process time for, your brain to come up with those twists and turns. And I did have some breaks, but it was 47 writing days. So
Wow.
when I really started to dive in, it was January 19th. I had like basically the equivalent of maybe 3 days into the book back before the new year. And then I had a couple vacations in there and a conference and whatever. And I always think I'm going to write when I'm away and I bring my computer and then I don't because I'm on vacation and I mean, whatever. I
Uh,
answer emails, at least I like clear the decks and try to
yeah.
keep up with everything else. So I'm really pleased with it. It's called Circle of Nine. The series is Circle of Nine. And this book is Mercy in the Mist. And I've mentioned that before. And I've been working with this illustrator who did my cover for my middle grade novel, and she's rebranding the entire series for me. And
Lovely.
I will at some point very soon show off these new covers. They're way more YA fantasy, which is the primary category for this book. I mean,
Oh,
I'm in a good
congratulations.
spot, but oof, yeah. But then now all the anxiety. Is it okay? Oh no, do I need to rewrite? Oh no, like whatever. So we'll find out. We'll find out.
Well, it's just proof. It shows you. Okay, so and you learn this as you go. If you want to tackle something like a novel, you become more confident when you start finishing those manuscripts and you start understanding your process and you start understanding what you like and what inspires you and your energy level. You realize, you know what, 47 days, I can get this done. I have X, Y, and Z other things to do, but I'm still going to stick to my deadlines and do it. That's the difference between a wannabe author and someone who can do the work. And it is not an easy climb, as you know, but if you hang in there and stick to it, and I read your Substack about it, how you set aside time. Well, you explain it, how you set aside time and you were dedicated to finishing this work.
Tracey and I are both members of the Blackbird Writers. We mention that frequently, and yay, 5-year anniversary for us.
5 years, yeah.
I can't believe that. I don't even know where those years have gone. Whatever. Anyway, like what now? Wait, 5 years? So Yeah, so for the Blackbird writers, we all take turns writing the weekly blog. And so this week is my week, and I will link to this, but I walk through the things I had to do to be disciplined, more disciplined than ever, because I have this responsibility to get this book done. It's not just, and here's the thing, with indie publishing, we have a little bit more flexibility.
Mm.
If we could say, oh gosh, I'm not going to hit an August deadline. Well, it's going to be a September book now, and then you can breathe a little easier throughout the summer. But I have this deadline because I want to have my launch at Irish Fest. Irish Fest has been so good to me through the years with this series, and I've just been shown a lot of love there, and have gotten to be there twice with my books. And so I'm very just pleased to be able to go back and do that. So I had this fixed deadline. So I have in that blog post all the things I did. And gosh, just turning off the social media notifications
Yep.
and not, I mean, I am so easily distracted. It's getting worse, and I think it's because of the way our brains are being trained by social media, like the quick videos, the quick
Yeah.
snippets, the like we're not. And so that's why like we go back to reading things like longer things outside our genre, reading things in book form, not on your tablet.
Right.
Just I think our brains are just not.
Well, that's why I've moved over a lot of things to Substack. I love my Insta and its pictures and the reels and everything.
Oh, I
I
do
love it,
too. Yeah.
but I had to pull back because I was borderline overwhelmed with all the book projects that are going to be coming out. 2026 is going to be fabulous, but you have to work on it all now. And so I just had to retreat a little bit to just, get the concentration level working. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, like you say, you can spend an hour scrolling and you're not being productive
Or longer.
or longer. So I had to cut
Sure.
back. I just had to, you know.
Well, and so I'll link to this post, the Substack post over on the Blackbird Substack in the show notes too. Really, it's kind of not a bad map for anybody, even if you're not under a really firm deadline. If you're just trying to make progress, um, how I managed my schedule. But a lot of it is too just to fight against my own bad habits. But I have to imagine that a lot of us have the same bad habits that need, help with that. So
Yes.
now, you mean this is actually a good segue to manuscript readiness. So this series about independent publishing kind of started in a way with our most popular podcast from last year, which was the traditional versus independent publishing discussion. Like, why would you want, the pros and cons? Why would you choose traditional? Why would you choose indie or, self-publishing? And going back and forth between those two things. So that still is our most popular podcast, by the way. That discussion. And I forget what month that was, but I'll link again back to that one in the show notes. But then this year we started out with, sort of a reset, like, okay, what do you need to get started? I think we called it just starting off strong. And
Yeah.
that was for anybody. It didn't matter what path you were going to take, but you're going to have these habits in place and, get your work done and, treat it like a business and, get your butt in the chair. Then we went to the discussion on hybrid publishing, which we didn't really talk about in that really popular podcast. I think we touched on it, maybe we defined it, what it
Hmm.
was. But that's where, it's sort of like some elements are traditional, some elements of indie. And that was a very interesting discussion, and that got a lot of attention too. That was a fun podcast.
Well, they're always fun with you, Val. You make everything fun.
But I mean, it was interesting because I think that we get confused. I think there's a lot of confusion about that. So we were happy to dispel,
Yeah.
some of the weird, thought processes behind hybrid. What is it exactly?
Yeah.
Then we talked about reviews. We had a little break because we did a little charitable thing in March. Then we talked about reviews last time. So if you haven't seen that and you want a good laugh, we read our worst reviews.
We read our worst reviews, which we need to do every year, I think, just to keep us grounded because we're going to be so successful as authors.
There you go. But yeah, never a bad idea to humble yourself with your worst
Yes.
reviews ever. Ha ha ha. Ha, ha, ha. So that was last time. So now we're talking about as we move forward in sort of the production process of, your indie publishing, self-publishing journey. What do you need to know to evaluate whether your manuscript is ready? What should you have done? So I guess that's the jumping off point. Do you want to talk about your process and how you know when your manuscript is ready to, to head on over to your formatting and all that?
Sure, sure. Of course, the one thing I do want to say is if you need sources, let me just give you these
Oh,
sources
yes,
because
do
we
that.
all do. So a couple of my favorites are Jane Friedman, Readsy, manuscript wish list and query tracker if you're going to go off and do some, query letters. And then the Alliance of Independent Authors, and then the Independent Book Publishers Association, IBPA. Those are
Yes,
just, those are go-tos for me. And then your local groups, such as Wisconsin Writers Association.
right.
Join a group, get in the vibe, listen and learn from these authors. So that's, I would recommend doing all of that as you write your novel. And then when you hit that point where, you know what, I am ready to start formatting this. I'm a Mac person. I use Scrivener and Vellum. So if
Mhm.
I'm going to, after I have finished, I'm going to literally take my Word document and upload in that into Vellum, and I'm going to look at it as a physical product. Look at the pages, look at the
Yes,
paragraph
like the
breaks.
2-page spread. Yes.
Yes,
So for
because
those, so I have one printed out.
oh, great.
This is from
Because
Atticus. Let me just find one that doesn't have a ton of writing on it. I was editing.
okay, okay.
But
I
it
need
really,
to see that. I'm just, I'm a visual person too,
okay.
so I
So
really need
for
to see what it
instance,
would look like.
now
Like that.
I'll do screenshots for people listening to this, and if you want to go to the show notes, you can see it. But if you're on video, you can see it helps to look at a 2-page spread. So we're
Yep,
talking about the formatting. You got your fleuron, those little artsy things that divide your content, or chapter art. But there's a lot of decisions to be made, right?
right.
Yeah.
So, I need to see that. So when I'm editing, because every little thing you change, you go in and change a paragraph, you go in to change something, it's going to affect that formatting. So if you're doing it yourself, you need to know how the reader is going to see that. And what it really bothers me is when I just see big chunks of text without paragraph breaks
Yeah.
or eye breaks. You know, don't produce a textbook. You want to produce something, we're used to being able to scan things.
Yeah.
Nowadays, thanks to the internet, we have a scanning behavior. And so I want to make sure that my paragraphs are not too dense, and I want to make sure that that reader can enjoy the reading process. There's enough white space in there so they can read without being affected and feeling like it's too dense of a novel or a narrative.
Right. And I should point out because my trim size is 6 by 9 for these books. And so when I print these out on 8.5 by 11 paper, like it's reduced. And I have to always remember that the font is not this size.
Right.
Like because I have that moment where I'm like, oh, this is too tiny. And then I go, oh, right,
Yeah.
right, right, right. I had to shrink to fit to the page. This is not the actual size.
And so I jumped into the kind of the technical
Yeah,
side of
it's
this,
great.
and I didn't mean to, but that is something that I do because I indie pub and I want to make sure that that is correct even before I edit, really. I mean, I will have a clean and edited manuscript, but I know once I see it laid out like that, I'm going to have to go back through again and edit.
I think that makes a lot of sense because I even just looking at this yesterday. So, just for context, I am reformatting all the books in my Circle of Nine series because when I started out more than a decade ago, I used CreateSpace. And now I need to for uniformity, I need my interiors for the series to all look alike. So now I am taking that work on and I am reformatting. But what's funny with this is that that was my first book, Circle of Nine, Beltany, and I'm editing as well. And I mean, basically, it's just some typo things.
Mhm.
It's not anything crazy, and it can't be because I'm not starting a new edition. I'm using my same like listing with Amazon and KDP. It's going to be just a update to that book. I'm not getting a new ISBN. And I feel like sometimes I can pick up a manuscript and I will always find something to edit though, like
Yeah.
even a book that's
Oh,
out already. Let's go back just a click to the editing process though. Do you do exactly the same thing for each book for your editing before you even get to say to that formatting point? How do you know, like, that you're
well, you know
right?
what they say, a book is never finished, it's only abandoned.
Abandoned?
I think they say that of artwork. I think famous artists have said that, art was never finished, it's only abandoned because you can always edit. But I edit I'm kind of a stickler this way because I have made mistakes, learn from my mistakes. I write a chapter and then I use Grammarly to
Mhm.
catch any, it's not always perfect, but at least that's going to catch any typos or dropped words or anything. And then I actually physically print it. I print it out and read it out
Yeah.
loud. And I usually do it by chapter by chapter by chapter, so that I know when I'm finally getting close that at least I have done a line edit. I have done that line edit. And then do you hire an editor as well? Do you have a second set
Um,
of eyes there and hire one?
I don't. However, the only reason I don't, although I probably will for this fourth book, just to see if a couple of the editors I know if they've got time to do it quick. I have in my critique group some people who are stellar editors,
Yeah,
and we do whole manuscript edits for each other as a trade. And so we're just always available. I mean, so those are the people that I always make space for because it's
great.
reciprocal and it's a trade. It's like a barter system, right?
It's like a barter, and then that's what you build as you're writing writing your manuscript. That's what you're building, right? Is that trusted group. So if you
Yes.
have to, if you've got your beta readers, hopefully you've had a developmental edit or you've had that big picture point of view, and you've come down to something that is what you want. But still, that editing process is going to be a stickler. Do what you can do to make sure that it's as clean as you possibly can make it.
And if you do not have, trusted people that will work with you, on this, like for free or whatever, like even if you're on a budget, this would be the spot where you spend some money,
Yeah.
is on the professional edit. There's a reason why. Let me find it. So for those of you who are seeing us on video, I'm holding, and those of you who are not, I'm holding up a copy. This is my working copy of my first book. And as Tracey can attest here, I've got all kinds of flags for things that were, typos. Things like, not having a period when you have she said when it should have been a comma. Simple things didn't affect the readability necessarily, just annoying typos that should have been caught.
And
Uh,
these days you'll find typos in traditionally published books.
for
So,
sure.
you
For
know,
sure.
it's an editing is not glamorous.
Well, and I have a whole editing, an editing guide. Like I have a process. I go through and I check for my overused words and I have a
Yeah,
list of those. Really? Just that? Had,
very.
too many hads, because you don't always need those. Sometimes you do, but you don't always need them. Uh,
I gave a kiss. I gave a wave. No, you just kissed or you waved. You don't
right.
need gave a.
Or like starting to, began, no,
Trying
just
to.
do the thing, whatever, right? Like weak verbs, right? Or the sensing verbs where your main character is like, I saw whatever. I mean, you have to use some of those sometimes, but there's probably more active ways, to do those
And
sentences.
if you're writing in first person, go to a page and count the times you use I.
Yes.
I saw this, I did that, I thought this.
In
Reduce
every
that as
paragraph,
much.
I.
Yes. Reduce that as much as possible. The reader gets that, okay, it's first person. We see this person's point of view on everything. So, go through and cut those as much as possible. If you go into, say, for example, go to James Patterson, go to Amazon, read a sample. You don't have to buy the book. Just go
Right,
read the samples. See how clean that prose is. Just
right,
so
right.
clean. And the more
It is.
clean prose you read, the better your self-editing will get.
Do you look at where your chapters start and stop and ever change that spot?
Yes.
Yeah,
I believe in short chapters, right? I like people to feel the pace. I write mysteries and
yes.
I want them to feel a nice pace. And so I usually tend to write shorter chapters. Lee Child says, make the tense scenes long. Make the traveling scenes or the scenes in between, clip those
Right.
and keep them as short as possible because you want the tension you want your reader to feel that. So you draw out the tension, but then the scenes getting there are shorter.
I think as a new author, I feel like the reader's supposed to come along with me on every step of the way, but you don't actually need to be with the character as they walk out of the kitchen, up the stairs, down the hall, into the bath.
Oh,
No, just put them into the next scene. Your reader will be fine. Trust your reader. They're going to understand that they move their body from the kitchen to the whatever without teleportation, unless that's
yep,
part of the story. But it's things like that where you just don't need to over explain certain things that are mundane.
right,
Move them along, just move them along. And then, if it seems confusing, just drop that short line,
right.
whatever. Also, I have a big pet peeve with books that end the chapter previous with bedtime and you wake up the next morning at the beginning of the next chapter. Sometimes it's funny if that's like the shtick for the book. I also don't always need to know what people are eating unless it matters to the story.
Right.
I know that like cozy, everybody wants to know the food.
Yeah.
With cozy
One of
miss.
the funniest reviews I've ever had was, I don't know how people stay svelte in these books because there's more booze and beer and bratwurst and cheese than
Well,
one normal person.
cheese curds, what can we say?
I
Oh my
know.
gosh. It's
He only gave me a 4 star, but it was the funniest review I've ever had. Yeah.
I think you do this too. Read your manuscripts out loud to yourself.
Yeah, or I have my computer do it. You can just click on speech and it reads it to you, and that's an
Yes.
easy way to catch things for sure.
And it's crazy how you realize, particularly like repetitive phraseology
Mm.
or just awkwardness. You're absorbing the story in a different way that helps you make it a better story. Once I get a fairly clean document, I mean, it's not like copy edited or like for typos yet, I should say, proofread. I send mine out to beta readers then.
Mhm.
And that's where, if I've missed it somehow, like a dropped subplot, or I think I know what I mean and it's clear, my beta readers are great and will be honest and say, yeah, this whole, I don't understand what's happening here. Like, they'll circle something. Yeah. Do you always send out to beta readers? Do you have a pretty good group of beta readers too?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I've been very fortunate in that sense, and been pleased with the feedback, but that again comes to building your network. Build your network of trusted people and you'll sift and winnow. Some people may not work out. Don't take offense. Don't take criticism personally.
No.
Listen to it. If 2 or 3 people say, this part doesn't work, I don't get it, fix it. Don't waste
Yeah.
time defending it. Fix it.
Right. Right. No, it's so important. I mean, if you're going to take the time to actually share with beta readers, then no, not everything that beta readers come back with is going to be needing to be changed. Everybody looks at things a little differently. But if more than one beta reader says something, like there's a problem in this area, um, definitely pay attention to it. Don't be like, well, they just don't understand. No, 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 no.
No.
Because multiply that toward times all the readers who are going to see your book eventually. This is
Right.
not a good thing.
Right. And there's nothing, getting back to what I had talked to before, so I write in Scrivener, I take that, it produces a document for Vellum, I upload it into Vellum, and then I print it. There is nothing like printing this manuscript that looks like a book, and you have it in your hands and you can read it like a physical, they're just like that. There is
I'm pulling up
nothing
the
more
stack of my book.
thrilling than that. It's worth it. It's worth it to do all the work to get to that stage because you can see it as it would be laid out in physical form. And you get tired, you get frustrated, you want to throw up your hands, but you see that and you go, okay, no, I see it. This is where I'm going. I'm going to keep it up. I'm going to keep going.
Well, and I like giving my beta readers, now in the early days, my beta readers just got 8.5 by 11 manuscript pages. I don't send those out that way anymore. I send them PDFs or even an EPUB if they want to read on their e-reader,
Yep.
of the formatted pages, even if I know there's going to be some changes that are going to be made. I take the time to get it into that program. Now I use
That EPUB, exactly. From Vellum, you can download it into an EPUB and send it off that way, and they read it just like a book. It's fabulous.
And then Vellum's cousin is Atticus,
Mhm.
different company.
Yeah.
And I use Atticus. I find it works quite well. I haven't really come up against anything I've been super disappointed on with that formatting software, except it doesn't do half point like on font sizes. So if I want an 11.5 font, I can't do it. I have to pick 11 or 12 and then just make the spacing different. That is the only thing that's kind of driving me nuts a little bit. I just stick with 12. I mean, as I
Mhm.
get older, I'm like, I'm not going to mess with the smaller fonts anymore. Here I am with my glasses, I'm not going to mess with that.
Well, it's also lovely, and I don't know if Atticus has this, but in Vellum, you can, like, if you have a text conversation, you just click on it and you just go
Yes.
text, and it formats it right into like a text conversation.
Yes, I was going to see if I had a sample and I don't, but it
It's
looks like the way
fab.
and then, the other thing too is, so I'm reformatting 3 books that are already out to go along with this new 4th book in the series. And I had previously had an outside service, Create Space. Y'all remember Create Space? Do the earlier books. And then I switched over to just doing them myself in Word, and it just didn't have, the bells and whistles, right? The pretty things. I've created now a template inside Atticus for these books, but there were so many decisions. You
Yep.
know, your font, your chapter title font. How are you handling those? Are you using drop caps or not? Which drop caps, if you don't know, it's that big capital letter at the beginning of the chapter or the section. I have historical sections and modern day sections. So I have special florons, which are the little artsy divider thing that designate what you're coming into. I have a historical one as you enter the historical ones. I have then as you enter the contemporary ones, I have a different, floron. I created these, most of these I created in Canva and brought over, but the Atticus system has a lot of standard ones in already to choose from. And I bet Vellum does too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So
So,
don't get overwhelmed, but we're kind of going into a deep dive about these
yeah,
formatting things. But the thing to remember is edit well, get beta readers if you need to. You can try Atticus or Vellum on your own and fuss
for
around
sure.
with it and have fun, or you can take this well-edited manuscript to a service and they will do this for you. Okay.
For not much money
For not
for
much money.
right. So if this is something now I wanted to learn it, you wanted to learn it.
Yeah.
We didn't have to learn either of these systems. Now, if you have a background in this, maybe you actually do this kind of work for other people or something. You might have access to the Adobe suite of programs.
Right.
Often, then those folks with that knowledge base will use InDesign for
Mhm.
interior formatting of the books. But seriously, this is all like Tracey says, wonky talk about florons and this and that. You can go to a designer who will walk you through a checklist, basically what font do you want for your interior, what kind of florons, like do you want something, that's very feminine or masculine, are you writing suspense? So you're going to have different sort of art elements for those dividers. You might go as simple as just using the three asterisks, right? To
Right.
divide your scenes. You can do that and just stay very simple.
Because nothing overcomes poorly edited work.
No, no.
You can put
So,
in all the florons you want and the
no,
fancy schmancies if you, no, I'm not saying that you're doing that, Val,
no,
at
I know,
all.
but you're right.
But
This is like icing on the cake. If the cake is
yes,
dry and crumbling and
right.
horrible, the frosting isn't going to help it. Does
Right.
that
So
work? I think
just
that works.
remember that. Take heart, take heart when you think, oh, I need florins and I need this and that. And believe me, and I love sparkle and glitter. And if I could put it in a book, I would, but it's still write a great manuscript.
Well, and let's say this too, and now this is going to be sort of like a, my disciplinary tone here. If you're going to indie publish, for the love of God, please make sure your manuscript, your book, your actual story is as good as you can possibly make it before you hit that publish button.
Yeah,
Because the rest of us in the indie pub world are counting on you to not drag us down.
right.
I know
Ex-
that's mean, but it's like we are so beyond, really indie pub having a bad rap or self-publishing being like, oh, that's just vanity publishing, whatever. It's not. It's not. But that means that because there's not all these other people in the world, like you don't have an editor at a publishing company telling you you're ready. It is up to you to make sure your manuscript is as good as it can be before you hit that publish button.
Exactly. And we believe in you. You can do it. You
Oh,
know,
of course you can.
get your tribe, get your betas, listen to stuff, podcasts like this. You can do it. Takes a lot of work, but the more you do it and the better you get at it, the more confident you get, and then you're off and running.
That's right. That's right. Let's do a quick list of other things that you need to have as assets.
Sure.
So you've got your interior, you've got the guts of your book, right? Chapter one to chapter whatever. But there's a bunch of other things that you need to have. So why don't you start with your list and then I'll fill in?
I'm going to go over to the other assets, which would be some marketing side. This is for a different conversation, but I just want to remind you of your supporting materials.
Oh,
And
yes.
I actually teach a class in this. I taught one up at Lake Fly, and I'm going to teach one at WWA about writing log lines and short descriptions. Your log line, that 1 or 2 sentence description of your book. You want to make sure you have that. You want to make sure that you've got a 1 paragraph description. You want to make sure that those 2 things assist you with your marketing copy, your Amazon description, if you're going to go to that platform, or the back cover description. Make sure that you're well versed in being able to describe your book in 1 or 2 sentences one paragraph and you just know it inside and out. Okay. And that's a certain
Right.
art form. It's different than writing fiction, but you can do it and there's a lot of sources for you. Make sure you have an author bio, 50 to 100 words, a nice author photo. Make sure that you have those things, and then a list of acknowledgments. If you have people in your life, such as 2 podcasters, you want to thank for great advice.
Yes,
So
please.
now you go. What do you think?
You know what I actually just did so that I can read through this? I pulled up my Atticus formatting doc for my for the first book in the Circle of Nine series because I've been immersed in that all weekend. So my first page are my blurbs. Now remember last time we talked about reviews and getting these endorsements, if you will, from other authors, or maybe if you write nonfiction, people in the industry or the topic you're talking about, right? So then you have a page that's got some endorsements. That can be in the beginning. Title page, that's just like kind of just generates off of the information you put in. Copyright. Now let's talk about copyright page for a minute. There are standard copyright formats that just warn everybody to not steal your stuff, right? It says copyright, it's got your information, but you're going to have in there if you want a Library of Congress control number. Now, we talked about why you need one, why you don't need one a little earlier before we started recording. Mainly, I think we agreed it's because if you want your books in libraries, they really like to have that number as a reference number. Easy to get, takes very little time. It used to be longer. It's you just log into the system and you load your information in about the book, and then you get an email back with the confirmation on that number. But it is the unique identifying number for your title for that book in the Library of Congress system. Don't need it, but it's nice to have, particularly for distribution wider into the library system. A table of contents, which is almost always generated automatically. That is not going to be usually in your print book unless you are a nonfiction author, but it is the navigation system for ebooks where, like, say you want to, click on in the table of contents, click on chapter 4, it will automatically take you to the beginning of chapter 4 on your e-reader, whatever program you're using. And then fun stuff, like I have like my playlist in the beginning. You may not have a playlist of songs to go with your book. Most people don't.
Recipes. You're doing cozies, and usually cozies will have a recipe or
There you
something
go. Do you put recipes in the beginning or the back?
in the back. In the
In the back.
back. Because I want readers to just get right to it,
That's right.
So I put those things in the back. And then there's other things associated with it, your ISBN, your barcode, your BISAC, those
Yeah.
kinds of things you'll
Let's
need.
define those in case you're brand new to this book world and we're like throwing these acronyms out. So ISBN is International Sellers Book Number. That is a number that you get from a website called Bowker, but the website's like called myidentifiers.com. I will put a link in the show notes. You need to go in there, register your book. It is basically the unique identifying number, not to be confused with that Library of Congress number. It is the unique identifying number that is for selling your book. It is, and that it also is the number that's in the barcode that you have. Now, Kindlepreneur.com has a barcode generator for free. When you and this is something you may not understand if you're at the beginning of your publishing process. When you go into My Identifiers, the Bowker system, to buy your ISBN, those aren't free, you have to purchase them. There's an add-on for the barcodes. You don't need to do that. You don't need to buy them there. You can take that ISBN, pop it into the Kindlepreneur system, and it pops out your barcode in a little art, in a like photo format that pops onto your cover. So you can give that to your cover designer, whatever, or if you're doing them yourself, your covers. Now, BISAC codes, another completely crazy thing that you got to learn. But that is it. Book industry standard. No, that's not it. Book. What is it? What is BISAC? I
I don't
should
know.
know this.
I don't know.
Um, it's a funny, it doesn't actually make sense. But
No.
I will put that in the show notes too. But BISAC. So this is an identifying categorization system for book topics. And they're very broad. When you create your ISBN registration, you need to choose the BISAC codes. I think you get to choose 3, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so you
Mhm.
choose your main one, whatever. But I will link to those 2 in case you're curious. But that's the kind of thing where you learn as you go and read a couple articles
Right.
on it.
It's
from.
not difficult. The BISAC codes change a little bit. I think, don't they change them once a year or so?
They do. So some disappear if they're like not used a lot, and then they add more
Then
in.
they add more. It's
Yeah.
not hard. None of
No.
these things are hard. It just takes due diligence and you have to be organized and,
Well, and
set aside some quiet time to be able to go do this and, have a folder on your computer, save it in there for this particular book. It's not hard. It's just, administrative tasks you need to do.
right. And the first time you do it, there's that learning curve. Second time, you're like, oh, I know what this is. And you just
Right.
run through it. So this is probably feeling overwhelming. We're sorry. That's not what we're trying to do here. But those numbers, Library of Congress control number and the ISBN, which you also need to know the BISAC to get the ISBN, those live on that copyright page. And that's all front matter. That stuff goes, of course. I mean, and if you're confused, just go open up any traditionally published book you've got, and you'll see the order that these things go in.
Thank you for that. Exactly. If you're confused,
Just
go,
open a book. Just open a book.
go open a book and go, oh, okay, I get it.
Um,
Get
what do
it.
you put in your back matter besides your recipes?
Well, it's funny because you are the guider of this back matter. I'm going to have I might put my acknowledgments back there. They can
Okay.
go on or back, my recipes. And then of course your author bio if you like, and then links. You want to make sure you've got some links back there. If you've got, your website or your author page, you want to make sure that those links for your ebooks are present so that and you can include the next chapter of the sequel if you want.
Yes.
Just you can use it for a little bit of a marketing copy back there so that your reader has more when they're finished with your wonderful book and they want to know more. You're offering it to them right there.
Right. And so I was working on, so my last chapter of this book is chapter 30. So I have at the very bottom of that page, turn the page for more information on what comes next.
There you go.
Should I say for what comes next? Oh, we'll figure it out. So then the next page is for this series, it's the Circle of Nine World. And I have the short descriptions of each book. And for the paperback book, of course, I can't have a live link. But for the ebook, I can have a link in there. And away you go. If you want to go buy the next one, you're encouraged to do so immediately. I put a little note in from the author, which is where I send people over to my newsletter if they want to join me, over on
Mhm.
my newsletter or social media. Yeah, that's where I put my acknowledgments. Do you put your bio on the back cover with the book description, or do you put it on the interior page with your
I have it on
bio?
the interior page. I
So do
mean,
I.
yeah, I'm going to actually, it's good. This is a wonderful conversation to have right now because I'm going to my little backyard model mysteries. I'm going to come out with new covers and some, redo the rebrand, right? Because just like what you're doing. And so when my ebooks, I'm going to have a little bit more, and I may do a picture on the back. I don't really know yet.
We've got a lot of resources we talked about today, so there'll be a really nice list in the show notes. I never really defined front matter and back matter, but I think it's self-explanatory. Front matter is all the stuff that comes before the first chapter of the book. Back matter is everything that comes after the last chapter of the book. So whether you put which in, the front or the back. So
Right. And when in doubt, go pick up a couple books of your favorite authors and do your research. Have fun doing it. Go see what they're doing and, decide what you want and do the best you can do with it. And if you need help, there are sources that you can go to. You don't need a hybrid publisher for this. You can go vet people who can walk you through certain things like formatting or cover design.
for
You can
sure.
pick and choose the people you want. You don't need to go buy an expensive publishing package and have them outsource it. You can do it yourself.
Right. You surely can. If I can manage my way through Vellum or Atticus, I should say, you can do Vellum. And there's a learning curve, but if I've now feel like I've pretty much mastered Atticus, I feel very confident with it. If you have any desire to save that money and do your own formatting, let me tell you, yes, you can. You
Yeah.
can do it. But hey, send us questions. This is a lot of information. Throw questions in the comments. We will answer them. We're happy to do so. Thanks for joining us. Next time, starting to dive into marketing for the indie pub books. And that's going to be multi-podcast topic. So
Yes.
yeah, we'll
Yes.
see. We'll see you next time. Yay. Thanks for joining us.